only outfit in the country that is immune. Imagine had the tobacco industry been immune to being sued. Come on.
There is brand new polling out on the presidential approval rating, and it's not good for President Biden. These numbers are really tough.
You know, John, I don't like just looking at one poll. I like looking at multiple polls. And there were 4 different polls released this week. Quinnipiac, we had a Hart Public Opinion Strategies polls. That's with NBC or CNBC, Ipsos Reuters, CBS News, YouGov. I want you to look. These numbers kind of differ. They range from the low 30s to the low 40s. Low 40s is not good either. But what's key is the lowest are tied for the low for the pollster. Lowest tier. Lowest tier. This is 1 point off the lowest. Lowest tier. And when you have 3 or 4 pollsters showing the lowest numbers for the President of the United States, that is indicative of a president who's in a lot of trouble, at least to where he has standed historically.
Well, let's talk about history here. How does President Biden, compare to former President Trump in this stage of the presidency?
You know, there was always that thing, Donald Trump has the lowest approval rating at this point in his presidency. We did it over and over and over and over again. Well, at this point in his presidency, Donald Trump's number is actually, his average approval rating is 1 point higher than Joe Biden's, which is at 41%, Donald Trump at 42%. A first-term president at this point in his presidency, this is the lowest. This is the lowest for anyone who was elected to the presidency and didn't get up there through the vice presidency. This is a really, really, really bad number.
We cut down all our forests. We're doing fine. Guess what? We're part of the reason for the global warming. Well, I've never believed that.
We know quite better than that, so you're right.
No, but let me talk for a second. Mm-hmm. I'm a professor.
You are the president. That's all that we need.
No, I'm Professor Biden from Penn.
President Biden is trying to label this Putin's price hike. But most Americans, according to an NBC News poll, are not buying that. Only 6% blame Putin. Most believe President Biden's policies are very much to blame.
You can cheer. It's all right.
The rising cost of everyday life in this country, new numbers confirming what we already know. Inflation is skyrocketing, reaching a 41-year high.
We are seeing higher prices for everything, for food, for housing, for used cars. But the biggest driver of this last month, energy, fuel, gas prices. Now, the Biden administration is adding more ethanol into the summer blend, hoping that that will, in fact, help drive down gas prices. The bottom line, though, experts say the impact may be minimal. But adding more ethanol may have a limited impact, since only 1.5% of gas stations nationwide actually carry E15. One expert noting it's costing the average household $327 more per month to purchase the same goods and services as last year.
Will you send officials to Ukraine? Will you send senior officials to Ukraine?
Well, we're making that decision now. Thank you.
Who would you send?
What was the reason? Are you ready to go? Yeah.
You can't really put it all on the war and Putin. I get that we've seen sharp spike in energy and food prices since then, but we're seeing rising prices everywhere, and particularly in housing with rents and shelter in places like apparel that have been rising for the last few months. That's much broader than just what we've seen as a result of the war.
The very large increase in March was driven by a very large increase in energy prices and gas prices, and that is a direct result of Putin's invasion and Russian oil coming off the market.
Look at that. Just 66 in April of 2022. Going back since 1978, it is tied for the lowest. It was 66 in April of 1982. Of course, that was a good year for Democrats in the House of Representatives with the Republican president. And I'll just note, if you don't believe that the economy is hurting the Democrats and Joe Biden, look at the net approval rating. That's approval minus disapproval. Joe Biden at this point, minus 23 points. That is the worst on record since they started asking about economic job approval ratings back in 1978 with Jimmy Carter, who, of course, ended up the economy ate his presidency and put it to bits.
Marianne, thank you for
Thank
being
you,
with
sir.
us this morning.
I think you previously called it a publicity stunt. Is that still the view of the White House? Can you give us any reaction to this busload of migrants arriving here in D.C.?
Well, these are all migrants who have been processed by CBP and are free to travel, so it's nice the state of Texas is helping them get to their final destination as they await in their outcome of their immigration proceedings, and they're all in immigration proceedings.
And she also talked about how they're in the process of, their immigration proceedings as they await their court hearing, but you just have to wonder, will they be? And if they stay in the country under this administration, is ICE going to be going after them?
No. And remember, 3% of the illegals are actually showing up for their court dates.
Senator Schumer at a virtual event on student debt today said that he's talked personally to the president, quote, a whole bunch of times, and talking about canceling student debt. He said, "We're making progress, folks. We are making progress. The White House seems more open to it than ever before." Has the president had conversations with Senator Schumer, and is he, moving on this issue where he's more open to the idea of
the president's always been happy to sign a bill into law passed by Congress that would cancel $10,000 in student debt.
Does the president then acknowledge any responsibility for the inflation that we're seeing now based on the decisions that he's made when he came into office?
We've had a lot of success moving more equipment and goods through ports, et cetera.
Take responsibility for his decisions, like some say the American Rescue Plan boosted demand when it didn't need to. Larry Summers was one of those.
Well, the alternative would have been that we would have gone into a massive economic downward spiral.
The question on inflation, you were referring just a minute ago to the consequences of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I know we've often heard the administration refer to Putin's price hike. I just got back actually last week. I was out in Michigan talking to a lot of voters who told me that they feel like inflation has predated the war. And I'm curious how the administration just, squares this all together. I mean, many voters do feel that inflation, and correctly so, predates the war, and it can't all be blamed on Vladimir Putin.
We talked about inflation long before there was an invasion.